All right, peace and blessings, everybody. Thank you so much tuning in on this evening. It's yours truly. I am Amar Mari. I am the founder of Synergetic Network Group LLC. My queen of modern rise, the co-founder. We are the community liaison for entrepreneurs and consumers. And on this evening, we've been blessed to be able to have on the platform with us King Mas. He is a reggae artist, activist, father, husband, doing great things within the community. I heard our brother on this video here, and it was done by King Dalian Adafo. And at the outro, I heard Brother King Mas on there. My queen and I both heard his song and his music, and it just blessed our spirit. I had inquired about who is the person whose music and song is playing that in the outro, and Brother Dagan had told us who he is, and he had linked King Mas and I up, and him and I, we had a wonderful dialogue. And our brother definitely truly is one who has the spirit of the Rasta. I mean, it's really no doubt in my mind about it. I love Bob Marley. I love Buju Banton. I love Brother Chronix. And hopefully I'm not putting this brother on the spot, but, to me, he has that type of quality. His lyrical content is absolutely phenomenal. I mean, his music and his songs touches your soul, and so I said, man, I have to present this brother to the world, because I believe when you have gifts like that, he to me is a present that need to be opened, and so that he can bless other lives as he had blessed our lives. And I'm quite sure of everybody else life that actually watch. Again, Ancestral Voices, Spirit is Eternal. Listen, you want to get this DVD. Again, our brother's on this DVD. All right, Professor James Small. For those of you who are part of the conscious movement, you should know who Professor James Small is. If you don't know, you definitely want to get to know him. He's one of our elders within the community. I'm telling you, man, this DVD is powerful. And our brother King Mas, again, his songs and his music is also on this DVD. You can get this DVD on Ancestral Voices. Okay, I provide the information on the head of this video for you, as well as you just click on King Mas. I provided his actual fan page. So if you be so kind at this time, before our brother blesses us this evening with a song, be so kind, if you would, to share and invite. That'll be great. Listen, you don't want to hold the blessing. You want to share the blessing. So, let the love germinate on this evening. Let's help our brother go viral. He deserves to go viral. And we're going to talk about that on the night too, about content. Okay. We need brothers like this. We need queens like this as well. That's presenting such quality content. Okay. I mean, to me personally, he have a song called Queen. I love that song. In fact, if you didn't watch the promo video, you want to check that out. I played that song. I promise you, it is a beautiful love song. Now that is a love song. That is what you call a love song, man. I mean, I thought about my queen. I promise you I did. I promise you I did. I love her so very much, and that song, just to me personally, is infused with love. I mean, that's a song I personally would play at a wedding. I would personally play that at a wedding. Or brothers, if you out there and you're courting, your queen, hey, listen, send me a Hallmark later. You're going to thank me. You want to play that song called Queen. King Mas, talk to us this evening, man. How you doing this evening, brother?
Greetings, but Mari, I'm grateful for life, for health and strength, and yeah, man, I'm glad to be here, sharing the space, Yeah.
Most definitely, man. We're definitely glad, to have you here on this evening, man. So, talk to us about, your journey, man. Tell the people about who you are. let's get a feel of who you are, man. Tell the people something about you, man. You know, your journey from beginning to where you at today.
Well, my name is King Mas, affectionately known as the musical Obiaman, you know, bringing African spirituality into the culture as far as reggae music is concerned. I come from a long lineage of musicians. My father is a former Calypso king, Calypso monarch from the island of Montserrat. And his uncle, also a former Calypso monarch, is responsible for one of the biggest songs that the Caribbean has ever contributed to the global music culture as far as pop music out of the Caribbean. Me heart on fire, me soul on fire, feeling hot, hot, hot. Ole, 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 ole. That is my lineage. So, and it goes further than that. You know, we come from even more generations into the past as far as music is concerned. So I'm just bringing the tradition forward. I've been blessed so far to secure a Grammy Award as a songwriter. And as you mentioned, I just released my third album this past February. It's been doing extremely well. So that's the journey in a nutshell. You know, it's been a joy. You know, the album also is executive produced by myself and my brother, who's a Grammy nominated producer. He was just nominated this past year for his work on the Scorpion album with Drake. So we are all into music, and it's just an ancestral tradition that we're pushing forward.
Wonderful, my brother. So talk to us about your inspiration. Like, tell us about how you got to this point. Like, when did you find out that you could sing? And, you know, did you have a vision or a dream? You know, what happened to you to reveal to you, you know, that this is your path?
It's an inborn, like an instinct, an inborn sort of impulse to sing. As early as I can remember, I've been singing. I don't have a memory of when I began. My mother tells me that since I was very small, I would begin, you know, I would sing along, even in the car, in the vehicle. She might be playing some Bob Marley or some different cassettes. You know, at that time it was cassettes, you know, in the car, and I would just sing along with things. And I remember having I got my first Walkman, I think, at the age of 5 or 6. It was this really colorful Sony Walkman, and I would walk around with different cassettes in it and just listen to the sounds of, you know, like Boyz II Men and Brian McKnight and the great vocalists of the early 90s. And I would sort of mimic them, especially seeing as in my childhood, I dealt with epilepsy up until the age of about 12. And at that point in time, music was one place that I really found solace. And so I was able to really absorb a lot of those vibrations along with the dancehall, the Buju Banton and the Beanie and Bounty and Spragga Benz and everything happening in the early 90s. And then being from Boston, Massachusetts, you know, Bobby Brown and the New Jack Swing and that whole era, I was around a lot of that as well. So the mixture of my upbringing, being here as a first generation born in America, and my Caribbean background has just created this fusion. And that's really where my inspiration comes from.
If you would be so kind at this time, man, to, you know, bless us with a couple pieces, man, you know, that's near and dear to your heart, that, you know, was off of your upcoming project, or, you know, give us something from the past, man, that you want to, you know, share with the people at this time, if you would.
Absolutely. This is the song that opened the way, that made the connection. You know, give thanks once again to Dalian Adolfo and Verona Spence, the Ancestral Voices family, for making the connection. This one is off of my second album, known as Rasta Evolution, and it's called Our Story. They took us to the door of no return, took away our names and stole our words. And we'll be there, and I will be free again. All the civilizations and people's lost,
In this African Holocaust, still we survive and we still have a pride. In this generation a chant liberation. Africans at home and abroad, and we pouring musical libations. In the millennium as we tread, this is our story, our African story. Yes, we remember the pain, still we remember the glory. Oh, this is our story. Come make I tell you about our story, yeah. They try to hide our history and put it in mystery. I and I come to tell our story. Make I take you down as Swaziland. The man a practice mathematics long before Babylon. Some have said that them are Christian, and the foundation of their faith is rooted in Cushitic religion. Mansa Musa, the king of Mali, was the world's richest man through the trading of gold. So much history hidden from the youth of today, and still the half has never been told of our story, our African story. Yes, you remember the pain, still you remember the glory. Yeah, this is our story, our Abyssinian story. Yes, they try to hide our history and cloud it in mystery. I and I still remember my story. Yeah. Something like that.
And no, absolutely amazing, man. So talk to us about, you know, the inspiration of the song and you know, what is the meaning of it? Like, what do you want people to get out of it?
The central point and what inspired that song is that there's a difference between his story and our story. You know, a lot of what we might have learned in our history class is the story of the people setting the curriculum, which here in Boston, Massachusetts, has nothing to do with us as Bantu, as children of the African continent. So much of what the narrative was that was inculcated into the consciousness of myself and my peers in our youth left out very key aspects of the actual story of the African continent. You know, the story that we received more or less begins in 1492. You know, until Columbus shows up, you know, it's as if there's no record. So as Marcus Garvey taught us, you know, self-reliance, you know, and self-determination is a key, and being a self-directed learner, you know, even self-education is another thing that Marcus Garvey taught heavily. And so as I began to truly educate myself, because unfortunately my education began when I left the public school system. The moment that I got out of school and even university, I did 1 year of university, and I feel like the moment I left the school systems, I really began to have the time and space to truly learn. And as our ancestors always say, know thyself, you know, is really the key to unlocking certain levels of consciousness. And the more that I learn about our story, is the more I realize how deep the deception was, or how much the narrative was skewed in the school systems. And when we know better now, it's our responsibility to diffuse this knowledge into the community and empower our brothers and sisters. So our story is all about empowerment, about acknowledging our true ancestral lineage, and not being sort of misled by the narrative being fed to us about who we are as a nation.
That's powerful, my brother. If you would, bless us with another one, another piece.
All right, it's a totally different vibe. No. Let's put the reggae skank on it now. All right, so many times
think to my mind that this love between us being something greater than we ever could imagine. I want you all in another love, feeling from the pain is hard now. Even though I know it's hard to trust my heart to say. Maybe you learn to hide behind those walls, shield your heart and mind from those who seek to steal your royalty. 'Cause when I look inside your heart, a queen is what I see. And I just want you to know that you don't have to be alone. Just hold her seat upon this throne, 'cause every queen deserves a crown. And as long as I'm around, now you won't have to be alone. Because I'm precious more than gold, and every queen deserves a crown. Yeah, that one is called Crown from the most recent album. That's the title song. Yeah, totally different vibe.
Yes, indeed. I love that too. So, talk to us about that, man. After each selection, just tell us what that means to you. What's the inspiration of the song, and what you want people to get out of it.
Well, I think the way that I approach music is in alignment with the griot tradition, with the ancestral approach to the music, which is rooted in not only storytelling, but also being the newscaster and assessing the needs of the community and using the word sound and using the vibration to act as medicine and to bring balance and harmony to the nation. And one thing that I see creating a lot of disharmony or perpetuating disharmony is the breakdown of the Black family. And the breakdown of the community and the breakdown of the family at its root comes with the breakdown in relationships that was fostered in the Ma'afa, in the enslavement experience that we've had here in the Western Hemisphere and even in the East with the Arab enslavement of our people. So I find that in this age, there was a point where, especially a couple of years ago, I think it's getting better now, but up until a couple of years ago, being in love was not cool. Even in the R&B music and everything that was coming out at that time, it's kind of like, these ain't loyal, and just kind of everything was about how you can't trust, men can't trust women, women shouldn't trust men, and as long as we remain divided amongst, the gender lines, we won't be able to found homes. If we cannot have solid homes, we won't have solid communities. And if we don't have solid communities, we cannot have a solid nation. So the inspiration behind this song and really the entire album, The Crown, is seeing that pathology and creating music to bring the love forward again and infuse the airwaves and the sound of this era with a vibration that can mend some of the damage that has been incurred. Because most of the distrust and mistrust we have for each other, of course, is a result of certain things that have happened in the existing under chattel slavery. Especially, I'm coming from a Caribbean lineage, and I'm sure that you've been exposed to enough Jamaicans to know we have some ways about us. We're known to be hot-headed, short-fused. You can't really come at a Jamaican a certain way and not expect a certain reaction. But that's coming out of a certain experience. We've been disrespected and been dealt with a certain way where right now it's like, we say nobody can test. You wouldn't be wise to necessarily test certain people who have been traumatized a particular type of way. And then sometimes we end up taking out that trauma on each other. So Crown is all about laying that gauntlet down in regards to Black man, Black woman, and bringing that love forward to bring that foundation back to the community.
I like what you said. I recall you and I having that dialogue. It was very passionate. And you used a very good example when you used that song by Chris Brown about these whores are not loyal. And it's amazing how you brought him up, because I did an analysis on his music from when he started. I did that today, actually. You know what I'm saying? So I know this is meant to be. I don't believe in coincidences, because I actually did analysis on his music from 2005 when he first started on a major label. And listening to the Chris Brown that just started and listening to the Chris Brown now, it's like what you said, some traumatic experience. Like you even see his image change, you know, and his lyrics changed, you know, and you can tell he went through something, because before, you know, you wouldn't even mind your grandmother hearing his first album. You know, you wouldn't mind, you know, no one in your family, you know what I'm saying, that is an elder or a peer or even younger generation. But then now it's female dog this, whore that, you know what I'm saying? And I believe that, like what you said, I believe that that's the reason why a lot of our men and women alike have lost respect for self, because of them constantly listening to those type of lyrics. And a lot of people don't understand. See, I'm glad you're on here, because you do this for a living, you know, and you believe in, I call your music soul music. Your music is real soul music, you know what I'm saying? Because it elevates the soul, you know, elevates the mind. And I don't think that some people really understand the mark that that young man is leaving. You know how we have throwbacks, like for instance, my throwback is All I Do Is Think of You by Troop. You know what I'm saying? That's my throwback. Now I'm 42 years old, going on 43. Now I want people to think about, our children are 18, 19 years old listening to him, you know, even younger. So think about what their throwbacks are going to be. These hoes are not loyal. That's going to be their throwback. 20-something years from now, think about them saying, well, this is what, if they was going to play it for their grandchild or grandchildren, this is what we listened to when we were younger. They could, if they're mature in their mind at that time, they couldn't even play that song because of the lyrical content. What else would you have to say about the impact?
What I would say in response to that, because the impact of lyrics, I definitely want to touch on that, especially as a songwriter. You know, as I said, the Grammy and you know, a lot of the accolades I've received are even more so as a songwriter than as a performer. So I take lyrics very, very seriously. But one thing I want to clarify about Chris, because I know Chris, I've been around Chris, I play ball with Chris. You know, I've been around this brother, and I want for people to know that you have to put his life in context, because this man came into a level of fame and wealth and access at such a young age that there are very few people on the planet that can in any way conceive of what his reality has been like, what his road, his path has been like. And being around him and speaking with him directly, he's not this dark entity that he comes across as. I think that the issue is that he is surrounded by some dark entities that that benefit from him putting out that sort of material and that encourage him to do so. I also would say that I know from other cases, other individuals in the music industry where good brothers who are doing excellent music, you know, they're brought into rooms and sat down by executives who will say to them, you know, your image is it's not, how do we market you? You know, you're young, you're 20-something year old, maybe you have your girlfriend and you're faithful to her and you're a family man. Like, what is this? We can't market this. If you're not singing about lean, if you're not singing about, as you say, the hoes and the B words, and if there's no violence, if there's nothing, the machine itself will not necessarily reward that. And sometimes they'll bring you in under the guise of, okay, we like you as you are. And then once you're in it, that's when they start working on your mind to turn you into something else. So every man will have to answer for their works. So as we know, there will be a judgment at some point for all of us that will reach us. So I don't know what Chris's final judgment will be, but I will say that I've been around him, I've interacted with him, and I don't think he's the monster everybody makes him out to be. Secondly, when it comes to lyrics, we have to remember that just dealing with quantum physics, that everything is vibration. All that we see around us comes down to essentially particles and vibration. So when we're speaking or when we are making music, using the string, using the drum, we are affecting matter at the most fundamental level, and the intention with which you do that affects the wider cosmic order in a way that is extremely profound. And like you said, it becomes the sound of an age. And it is very disconcerting to think that, because my generation's not innocent either. You know, when I think of, you know, I'm a few years behind you, brother. I'm not, you know, actually my solar return just occurred this past Sunday. So I just reached the age of 32. And still thinking about my high school years, you know, that's to the window, to the wall, to this what? No. So it's still like, you know,
Whoa.
my throwback is gonna be a little crazy.
Oh man, you know, talking about skeeting all over.
You see?
You know what I'm saying?
It's still gonna be a little crazy, but at the same time, we had I feel like we were at the tail end of an era where it was still kind of okay and cool to be in love. You know, Genuine was still singing about Stingy, and you know, there were a lot of people. Jesse Powell was still doing his thing, and there was some really, really good. Jagged Edge was still around. Those were my high school years. But yeah, as of right now, it's gonna be interesting to see what the next generation looks back on as far as the lyrical content and the sound of their age.
You know, I really think about how music sets the atmosphere. It's just like the various genres. For those who are religious, you have gospel. And worship music invokes the presence of worship. Praise music invokes the presence of praise. Love making music, you know, invokes the same thing. It's like some songs, to me, I know they say love because, well, I got a broken heart. I don't see where, you know, love is sad and dreary and you know, the blues. I don't really see that. My husband left me, you know, and I understand, you know, people singing what I'm not knocking, everybody's different. I'm just talking about, like you said, the vibration, the frequency. Like, it makes you sad. You see what I'm saying? Like, when you listen to that song, it makes you sad, you know? With Brian McKnight's song, when that first song is his song came out, you know what I'm saying? You know, it was sad. You know, he was talking about
one
how
last
she
track.
left him.
Yeah, my shattered dreams and broken heart and mending on a shelf. Yeah, but
Exactly.
I
And
think what
I seen her with somebody. I'm like, man, you listen to that. No wonder why you going to get the bottle.
I mean, I don't.
You
It's
understand?
it's almost like a pick your poison situation from the way that I see it, because
Uh-huh.
in a way, I think that it can be healthier psychologically to confront the actual emotion that you're feeling instead of trying to transmute it into something else, because you don't want to be vulnerable, because you don't want to get down to the real reality of what's bothering you. Because what I found in the more recent, all that these holding all that's because somebody hurt you. You're hurt. You're really hurt, but you're gonna show it as dismissive, as being angry or trying to insult somebody. I remember Amarion had this song called MIA a few years ago. Again, when I was right out of high school. Since you've been away, love's been MIA, and it starts off with the first lyrics of the song, literally as, "Man, F her, I don't care." And then he's still singing about the girl and how what she did to him and how he's doing whatever to cope with it. But if you had to write a whole song about it, you care.
Yeah, that brother was heart. His heart was broken. You know what I'm saying? And you're right. I mean, I know for them it's a freedom. It's therapeutic for them. You know what I'm saying? Because that's their time for them to get in there and release their hurt and their pain. Things of that nature. But then you got gangster rap. You know what I'm saying? Which anybody that follows me knows that I do not agree with that at all. You know what I'm saying? It's a difference between when you're talking about what you see and when you're an advocate for it. And a lot of them try to use that as an scapegoat. And again, I lived that life. I turned away from that life. I don't see nothing beautiful about the gangster life. I've seen mothers crying. I cried real tears. I seen my best friend, mother and brother, who he was murdered at the age of 14 years old. My best friend got his brains blew out. Okay. Mm-hmm. I didn't see nobody happy and rejoicing and popping bottles and throwing money in the air when my friends got put into the ground. I didn't see that, man. My other friend brother got tied up, shot in the head, thrown over a bridge in a mafia style. My other friend got into a shootout with an undercover cop. He died on the way to the hospital. I didn't see anybody having all that fun. Mm-hmm. I never seen anybody having a party and rejoicing at their wakes and at their funeral. I've never seen it, brother. And that's the problem that I have with that life. They just give you the glitz and glam. They give you the money, but they don't talk about people being shot, family members being shot on account of something they done, people that are innocent, you know what I'm saying, getting shot on the account of stuff that they're doing or something that they've done, and that's the problem I have, because it causes our minds to be corrupt. I don't like the degrading of our women. I don't like the degrading of ourselves overall, period. Calling ourselves a nigga and always trying to justify, oh, that's niggas, that's king. I'm like, man, we have to correct the error. I would love to hear your input on this, because you're the subject matter expert as it relates to the musical content and lyrics and how it influences the people, because I know you rock the crowds with your music. So I would love to hear, what you have to say about that.
Well, I think that the issue again is twofold, and it's very interesting how we've already touched sort of on the R&B world. Now we're moving into the hip hop world, and being a musician myself, and having been approached myself by an industry where I've been chastised even for displaying an interest or putting into the music, putting into the lyrics, in my subject matter, anything to do with African spirituality. I've been cautioned, I've been warned that as long as I continue to do so, my career will only reach a certain peak because there is this extreme fear and aversion to African spirituality, or what is known as obia, in the Caribbean culture. Because during the enslavement period, of course, African spirituality was heavily associated with slave revolts, things like we saw with the Haitian Revolution or whatever have you. And there's actually legislation in place to this day to stop you from, you cannot openly practice, it's illegal actually to practice any African faith system in Jamaica right now in 2019. You can be incarcerated and fined, and they just pushed the fine up, or they're attempting to push the fine up to $1 million Jamaican dollars. This is a simple Google search will verify what I'm saying. And they're currently seeking to push the fine up to 1 million Jamaican dollars if you're found to be practicing an African religion in Jamaica. But that's besides the point.
Wow, man, we got to come revisit that one, brother. That's deep right there.
We definitely will.
That's something serious.
But what I would say is that in the industry, because you have to look at the timeline, it's always good to look at things in a linear fashion and look at the order of events. And we know that in the origin of hip hop, when you look at Grandmaster Flash, you look at that era, going up to Public Enemy and the 80s and whatever have you, you did have some sort of outliers, like we mentioned, when we first reasoned Big L and certain people that were depicting certain types of graphic violence and some lyrics that were very heinous. But for the most part, hip hop was relatively socially conscious and really speaking on a lot of realities of what we were facing at that time as a people. But then there came a point where the corporate interests began to see the potential of the genre of music, and the corporations came in, the labels came in and said, listen, this is a powerful tool, but this is what we want it to be. This is the message that we want to project, basically, because at the end of the day, the consumer base for the music, for the most part, is not us, because we as a nation, or we as a population, African Americans, don't have the bulk of the disposable income in this country. It's mostly European Americans. And so they changed what a hip hop artist should be to the image of us that appeals most to the European American, which is the savage, which is the thug, which is the super predator that I think Hillary Clinton once called us. So we began to see the transition from the early lyricists to the 90s, where, when I was growing up, the music had already gotten very, very dark. And it's gotten to a point now where even though the content wasn't always on par with the likes of Nas and the Common and some who came out, they were kind of the vanguard for keeping the music on a certain level of consciousness. But you fast forward to this decade, the 2010s, I guess you could call it, and the rise of mumble rap and literally having artists go in the studio on drugs, on lean, and they cannot even enunciate their words. And that has become the archetype for what goes, or what will succeed in hip hop in this era, because at the end of the day, that is what the European American wants us to be. So I think the ultimate thing, like you were talking about your upbringing, and I wasn't aware of this until now, but I think what we're facing as a people is an identity crisis. Again, it goes back to our story and the fact that coming from a history of degradation, a history of enslavement, and only knowing that as our background, you step on my shoes and I go to work, I'm disrespected. I go to school, I'm disrespected. I'm walking in the street, these officers are dealing with me whatever kind of way. I'm walking around constantly being disrespected. And at some point, I'm on a hair trigger. All it takes is for you to bump into me. I might have lost my job that day. Anything could have happened. I'm under all this stress, and the brain is traumatized. And you're also, especially if I don't have love for myself, and I look at you as a reflection of myself, and you happen to offend me, I'm ready to take you out because I'm tired of being disrespected. But then when I look at it in the context of, okay, in spite of this system, I know that I'm coming from great kingdoms. I'm coming from kingdoms like Ashanti. I'm coming from kingdoms like Yoruba. I'm coming from kingdoms like Kush and Kemet and the Congo kingdoms like Luba and some of the early empires that existed in the continent. So when I see my brother in the street, I know where we're coming from. So we're royals, we're descendants of monarchies. Why would I ever disrespect you? Or why would I ever disrespect myself? So I think it comes down to the narrative, and what the music has been created to do is to move us away from our true identity into a packaged identity that isn't even really meant for us, but to sell us as we've begun to see ourselves through the eyes of a European. That's what that really comes down to. And in order to succeed on the corporate level, oftentimes that's what's required of you. Even if you know better, you have to play the role to get through.
Glad you told the truth about that, man. There's so many people that deny that they have a responsibility. And I noticed that a lot of them really don't truly, even though they make all these millions of dollars, even though they're well known around the world, a lot of them really truly don't understand that they have a responsibility as an icon. You know, like they actually influence people's life. They influence how they talk, how they dress, how they act, how they think, how they perceive themselves, how they perceive life. And so many of them, my brother, is sad, and I'm not judging them at all, because I understand so once was I. I was blind at one time. I couldn't see. You know, I was asleep, and I hurt people in my unconscious state, unbeknownst to me. With that said, a lot of them, they don't pay attention to the fact they'll tell you that it was another rapper that influenced them before they became, you know, the hip hop icon or the R&B icon that they are. It was somebody who influenced them as an artist. And they run away from that responsibility. I've heard some artists say, well, I'm not their parents. That's their parents' responsibility. But then when you hear them on an interview and they ask that question about who inspired them, they always say it was another hip hop artist. You know? And so with that said, man, that's what's so sad about it, that even me, myself, and my former life, you know, when you're greedy, you don't care about yourself and you don't care about nobody else. You think you care about yourself. It's an illusion. You know what I'm saying? It's an illusion, because a lot of those brothers and sisters are living their lives literally on the edge, man. They're like a step away from death. And they don't understand that when they're talking the way that they're talking, when they're calling women whores, when they're calling women female dogs, when they're talking about drugs and gang banging and just constantly feeding the ego, the lower nature of us, I recognize they really don't understand that they are sowing death. And that's the reason why their lives become so dead, and they become so depressed and start, you know, becoming alcoholics and drug addicts. And, you know, their lives are so full of chaos because they don't understand that that's the seed that they're sowing.
100%. I'd say a perfect example, just to speak on a couple of current events. Let's take our brother Kodak Black, for example, who, and this is a brother who is from the bloodline of IET, you know, of Toussaint Louverture and Jean-Jacques Dessalines. This is one of the great African warrior nations that he should be very proud to be a part of. And he's representing them very poorly to go around making the statements that he's been making. One of them that, and the age that we're in, I actually, in spite of everything, I believe that things are improving. I've seen a massive shift in the consciousness of our people in the span of the past couple of decades. I believe we are reawakening to the truth of ourselves. And the next generation is going to be a force to be reckoned with, because the age of information, with the rise of the internet, with the rise of the ability to transmit truth and knowledge, there's a massive transformation taking place. And this brother Kodak Black has found himself in hot water several times, not only with the law, but with the people, the constituency that was once supporting him, his fan base, because he's gone around making statements like, "I don't deal with dark-skinned women. I do not find any dark-skinned woman attractive. He only deals with red bones." And he's lost a lot of his fan base for making statements like this. And more recently, after the transition of the brother Nipsey Hussle, Rise in Power, he made some statement to the effect of, "Well, I guess now that he's gone, I think his wife might be single. I might need to go over there and comfort her if she needs some comfort." You know what I mean? This is I think this was less than even a full week after the brother transitioned. He was already publicly making these types of statements, and he is being held accountable. So I do see a bit of a shift there where certain behaviors that might have gone on unanswered in the pre-internet age, now the voices of the masses have become a lot louder, and people are being held accountable to an extent.
Yeah, man, I find that to be sad to myself, man, because it's a lot of us that don't know who we are, and of course it's not our fault. You know, we know why it's happened, and it's so true. This is the information age, man. I'm so proud of the millennials as it relates to them waking up, you know, and I'm seeing more of them becoming entrepreneurs than when I was growing up, and more of them inquiring about, well, I know we come from the motherland, but what people do I come from? And I think that some people don't understand. Some people think that's insignificant, but is really very significant, because the people you come from, it encompasses culture. And culture even consists of, a lot of times people don't pay attention to this, but it encompasses socialism. And the root in that is how you interact, socialize, how you interact with one another. You know, how you conduct yourself towards your elders, how you conduct yourself overall. You know, your mindset stems from your culture, because there are spiritual principles, but I like to call it past interference, because tradition means that it's passed down from generation to generation. I believe there's been a past interference due to colonization, like you mentioned earlier. And we have not lost our culture. We've been cut off from our culture, because you can't lose your culture. It's not like you can, you know, misplace your phone. You can't misplace your culture. You know, we've been cut off from that. And a lot of us don't understand that we're in this condition because we've lost a sense of family. A lot of us don't understand. We came over here on the same boats. We came from the same region, Western Africa, you know, and a lot of us don't even understand our people migrated from East Africa to West Africa. So, you know, we actually have a mixture of various people within our DNA.
Africans have been moving all over Africa for quite some time, and not only Africa. There's a lot of archaeological evidence to suggest we were all over the planet long before any of those ships that sailed out of Europe. We had already circumnavigated the globe.
Absolutely, man. And I believe brother, once we get back to that family mindset, you know, let's just keep it real. You know, I say this because of my research. I've seen how our people over in Africa who have not been influenced by colonization, how they have an interface with one another. I see how you have some people who dress in modern day African clothing like I have on, but they still have a European mind. I've seen people who wear European clothes and talk African. You know, I've seen both. I've seen somebody wear a polo shirt that has more pride in who they are than a person that was born and raised in Africa.
And let's not even get into when we're talking about culture, another major part we have not spoken on is food and how you actually take care of your vessel and your physical being. That's a whole other topic, because some people, if you tell them they gotta give up that bucket and with all those biscuits, you know, they're not trying to hear that.
Yeah, that's so true. Making healthier choices, and a lot of times, again, I believe that comes from what we're taught. You know what I'm saying? Like, let the truth be told, at one point, let's backtrack, it really wasn't anything labeled organic. You know what I'm saying? So the times have changed, and then our geographical location changed, which we are agricultural people by nature, because as you know, at that time it wasn't any grocery stores during the year in the era that we were brought from over there to over here, you know. And so we pretty much succumb to, you know, by default, what we're handed, because that's all we have access to, right? So now we have to learn a healthier way of eating, because during that time it wasn't any pesticides, you know. And I think some people don't understand that. Like, you know, as time went on, and then not only that, you have more people in this nation, and now you got to have enough crops to produce fast enough to keep the produce in the stores. And this is one reason why they genetically modified the food, because they couldn't keep up with the demand for the supply of food. You know what I'm saying? So it's something a little bit more deeper to it than that, because anybody who knows anything about vegetation, you pluck it, it's still going to take time to grow back. You understand? And then it's going to be like, okay, is it going to have enough time to be? And this is the reason why I believe like the Fruit of Islam and so many other organizations like the Black Panthers, things of this nature, Marcus Garvey, you know what I'm saying, the UNIA, you know, how movements like that, how they taught and well, they teach rather, you know what I'm saying, that we should have our own properties so we can grow our own, you know, foods and things of that nature. So yeah, you know, I agree. But then we got brothers and sisters in apartment complexes in New York City, and then we had to become realistic about it. That's the reason why they're in apartments, because to be honest with you, it's overpopulated. So a lot of people don't understand that. That's why they're in apartment buildings, because they don't have enough space to put houses in that particular location, individual houses. You see what I'm saying? So now a person is still stuck with, okay, after I finish these crops, I still got to eat. So you still ultimately left with going to the produce, going to the farmers markets, because you still, you know what I'm saying?
If you even can get to some of those places, because ultimately, because you're saying, you know, the apartment, even you break down that word, those structures are kind of meant to keep people separated, and you know, it's the apartment, you're supposed to stay apart, and a lot of times they're in these things called projects, and they're designed a very specific way, and the kinds of institutions that surround these things, whether it's the hospitals, the healthcare is inferior. The kind of food that you have access to is inferior. You might not even have a farmer's market around you. All you know is the corner store.
is a teeny and some chips. Like some people, I know people that basically were raised in a situation where there was no produce aisle. Everything that they basically had access to was chips and cookies, and that was all that they really had access to growing up. And so it's a re-education process. And even in regards to my earlier statement when it comes to the fast food, the KFC and McDonald's, um, especially KFC, because KFC is a interesting case study because of course you see this European Colonel as the face of it, but that food is very much sort of a traditional food that's associated with African Americans specifically. And a lot of the things that we eat, and I'll even speak on myself as a Caribbean, a descendant of the Caribbean, a lot of the foods that we eat do come out of our experience, like you were saying, where we didn't have access to a lot of things. So we were eating the pigtail and the oxtail and the cow foot and, goat head soup. These are things that I even grew up eating until I had to I came to realize, wait a minute, not only were my ancestors so prolific that they made this taste good, um, you know, but this is something that really came out of a situation in which they had no choice but to make it taste good. And not because it tastes good doesn't mean that it's good for you. So I don't want to sound as if I'm disrespecting or condescending anyone's ancestral experience, because I also don't blame my ancestors for dealing with the swine the way they dealt with it, because that was what they had and they made it, they made the very best of what they had. But as we know better, and we should do better. And even though the communities we're in may try to deny us access to certain things, like you said, it's a beautiful thing to see now that even in some communities in New York, for example, you're starting to see, little community gardens popping up. Even here in Boston, I'm seeing little community gardens popping up. Some programs are being implemented where they're thinking about the hydroponics and like the vertical farming. They may not have large swaths of land to use, but you construct a building and you have a few floors dedicated to growing produce that can feed a few families throughout the year. And so I see a transition happening, but that is also a very central part of when you talk about culture and identity, that we really have to make sure that we are dealing with things on a holistic level to regain our balance overall in how we deal with each other. Because like you said, the Black Panthers, they were able to identify the fact that what was holding our youth back in school wasn't that they were dumb, they were going to school hungry. When you're going to school and you haven't, some of them might not even had dinner yesterday, they might not have eaten for the past 24 hours, you're expecting them to come into your institution and perform like a European child. And so all of the school lunch systems really were kind of lifted in this country, were lifted out of that concept, because it's so important to deal with the spirit, the mind, the body, and deal with things with a holistic approach.
Definitely, man. I think it's only because, like we spoke about, is just the toxins and and the truth is, man, you only could do the best that you can do with what you have. Because I go to the Whole Foods and I go to Trader Joe's, and even there, it's still, oh yeah, it's yeah, they call them whole checks. That's what I heard some people call whole checks. And I would say this, man. Even there, we're dealing with definitely an epidemic, because you have, and we discussed this earlier about genetically modified organisms, the GMOs, and you have seedless grapes, and anybody knows anything about agriculture, they know that grapes have seeds. You know what I'm saying? So you still have this, and these are supposed to be the health stores now, the healthy stores, but I notice how they still have options, exactly, money. And that's my point. They still have options that are not healthy. You see what I'm saying? But they're supposed to be the health choice stores. You know what I'm saying? And just because it's non-genetically modified, like you said, that just means it's not genetically modified. that doesn't mean that it's free from pesticides. And that's all that it means. It's just not genetic. In other words, it's not man-made. You know what I'm saying? It comes from Mama Earth. However, it doesn't mean what I aforementioned, you know. And so what does one do then? You know what I'm saying? Like, who really, now we talk about farming, but let's be realistic. Farming is a full-time job for the most part. For the most part, some people have their own little garden. Don't get me wrong. They still do their garden. I got it. But I'm just saying, like, I'm just a realist. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm really just a realist, because some of us are working so much these days. Some of our people working 2 or 3 jobs. You know what I'm saying? So do we really think they're going to have the power, the strength within themselves by the time they get off from work, you know what I'm saying, to go out there and start farming?
And I think it's important to note that that's an excellent point, brother. That's an excellent point. It's important to note that in our African kingdoms, when we look back even into, you can go back 1,000 years into 1000 AD in Yoruba land or in certain places, there was already specialization of labor. It's not as if everybody within our own tradition and culture had to be a farmer. You know, you had some people who were, like I was saying, griots. They were strictly musicians. You had some people who were weavers. You had some people who were part of the guilds of the iron workers. You had people who were translators, you know, who were omniglots that would go around and translate different things for the royal courts. But all sorts of different specializations. And so I don't suggest that we necessarily all have to be farmers, but I do believe it's everyone's responsibility to know what you're putting on your table to the extent that you can, because as you said, these labels can be very, very misleading. The more you can get directly from farm to table and cut out the middleman, the better.
Absolutely. I agree with you on that. I do. I'm just also realistic. That's all. I just have to be realistic, because I know what the overall situation is, because a lot of our circumstances has changed now. You know what I'm saying? Where you got both parents working and children in school, and you got so much going on. You know, I'm just realistic. That's all I'm saying. You know, and then also I like what you said, because it says it's peach, but it doesn't have any peach juice. So like, I like what you said, because brother, that's so true, man. And I'll salute to Rizza Islam as well, because Rizza Islam, he does. I appreciate that, brother. I heard him speak in Miami. He talks a lot about these things. Also, brother Ben X, I want to send a shout out to that brother as well too, because that young brother, you know, he talks a lot about these things as well. And that's what I had to, I mean, he pointed that out too. Like, it says peach, but it's nothing. It says 0% juice, nothing in there. It just says flavored, peach flavor. you understand? So somebody thinking they going, oh, this is some peach juice in it. And the only thing it is just flavored, you know, flavored peach drink. It's not juice, it's drink.
Terrible. It's real crazy. And I think, you know, I've done an entire podcast in the past with someone just talking about how the podcast, actually, they interview different artists about their dietary kind of regimen. And what I wanted to stress, and what I would suggest to everyone, that one of the key things is, like you said, it's very important to know your people that you come from. The reason why when you go to the doctor, the first questions they tend to ask you, you know, is there anybody in your family with a history of fill in the blank? Is there a history of diabetes, of cancer, whatever have you? What they're asking you in a nutshell is, who are your ancestors? Do you know, like, how much do you know about your ancestors? Because by knowing the traits that your ancestors have, and some of the pitfalls and some of the flaws in their structure that make them susceptible to certain things, you might know, you might be able to get a better sense of what it is that you need for your particular structure. Like I myself, I'm a relatively tall brother. I'm 6 feet 4 inches tall, and so one of the things that I'm very adamant about is that I have enough iron and that I really deal with enough greens to keep my blood and my circulation strong. Because when your arms or your wingspan is so long and your legs are so long, for the heart to pump blood to all of these very long extremities, you really have to have a very strong cardiovascular system. Whereas somebody with much shorter limbs, they might not have that concern if they happen to come from an ancestry of people with a different sort of structure. So whether it's that or hypertension or whatever have you, vision issues, hearing issues, dementia, Alzheimer's, it's important to know what the people of your lineage specifically are susceptible to so that you can design a diet around that. And I'll tell you a little bit more about my background and my past. When I was in high school, when I was a young man, I was severely overweight. I graduated high school 297 pounds. I was almost 300 pounds. Right now, I'm sitting in front of you at about 210, 215. And that came about through a regimen of diet, exercise, and switching what I consume over to something that more closely reflects the diet of my ancestors. Because another person who maybe is of, let's say, Italian descent, they could eat a bunch of pasta and a bunch of carbs and tomato sauce, and that's their people. So that might not affect them a certain way. But as you can see, I don't think I'm Italian. So I focus more on the yam and the cassava, and I deal with a little bit of fish from time to time. But like I said, a healthy amount of greens, beans and things of that nature. A lot of stews and soups. If you notice, a lot of African and Caribbean cooking is heavy on soup and gravy and stew. So I do a lot of stews, and from the moment I switched over to a food regimen that reflects where I come from or where my ancestors come from, my structure changed positively in response, as well as the lifestyle.
Dr. Sebi, man, Dr. Sebi is definitely one who helped to save my life. I can relate to what you're saying, because if I didn't change my diet, I honestly believe that I would have went to the grave sooner than I should have. And I used to have headaches. It influenced my attitude. I think my wife may still think I may be eating some junk because of my attitude sometimes. But I don't know if she think my diet may have shifted because of that, Brad. It's questionable. But I couldn't sleep. Very well, and it's true, man. It's so true. It really has helped my life. Also my thought process has made me sharper, because I don't have all these chemicals in my body. And people wondering, I'm borderline vegan. You know what I'm saying? I actually I don't eat meat at all. And I must admit, my weakness was mac and cheese. You know what I'm saying? Mac and cheese. I had to, I'm just honest, man. That's everybody has that struggle. That was mine.
Was that the baked mac? Is that the baked mac, or is that just the plain mac and cheese?
The mac. All different forms, brother. Bake, boil. I'll tell you, man, that was my weakness, man. But honestly, I cut back on it. And matter of fact, another thing I had stopped eating a lot of too was a lot of processed food. You know what I'm saying? I really did, even though they say vegan, but it's still processed. You know what I'm saying? So what I do is my meal is, I have like oatmeal, I have shakes. And I do this all the time. I do intermittent fasting. Intermittent fasting, I drink water like, majority of the day. You know what I'm saying? I have one nice meal, which is that bowl of oatmeal. Then I have my shakes. I have my shake for lunch and dinner. You know what I'm saying? And I actually use Green Vibrance, and I use Orgain. As far as the protein side, it's organic protein powder. And that's what I do. I'm a straight shake guy. I don't have no, processed food and stuff like that. You know what I mean? So I know some people, you know, they totally different. Everything's raw. You got the raw vegan, then you got, you know.
Yeah, there's levels to it. There's definitely levels to it. But for everybody, again, because I always want to stress that what works for you or what works for me may not specifically be the thing for another individual. I think it's important for everybody to know their history, their own medical history of their ancestry to the extent that they can. Tap into that and try to adjust what you're putting into your system so that it better reflects things that would balance any potential pitfalls you could run into based on what you know.
Yes, indeed, man. So, all right, we're gonna close here, my brother. We definitely appreciate, you know, you coming on and what have you. If you want to, you can leave everyone with how they can find you via social media.
The best way to do it is you can come on to my official website, and I have all of the social media links there for Instagram, Facebook, everything. And that website is www.kingmastherras.net. That is KINGMASTHERAS.net. Otherwise, you can type at KINGMASTHERAS, King Mas Theras, on any social media network, Facebook, Instagram, any one of them. I'm out there. Spotify, Apple Music, just type in King Mas, you'll find me. I'm very easy to find.
Wonderful, family. There it is. And also remember, our brother is on this Ancestral Voices DVD, Spirit is Eternal, by King Dalian Odafo. Him and his queen, they are a powerful team. They do African studies. And as I aforementioned about Bob Marley, you know, he has the song, Redemption Song. And I love the fact when he said, emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but yourself can free your mind. So this beautiful couple, man, this king here and this beautiful queen, you know, are giving us content, be it these DVDs and also the books. And our brother, again, King Mas, he's on this DVD. Okay, he's singing in the intro and the outro. He's on as well. You know, so definitely, you know, let's purchase these things. Don't burn the DVDs. Okay, don't burn them and sell and give them to somebody else. You know, let's ensure that we're doing our family right. They put time and money into this. So let's ensure that, you know, we buy their music and their DVDs, okay, because this is how they make their living as well. All right, so let's do them justice by sharing. All right, thank you so much again for tuning in. I'm yours truly, Amal Mari. I am the founder of Synergetic Network Group LLC, where your community liaison for entrepreneurs and consumers. We love to bring you on the platform so that you can possibly gain clients or have potential clients. Okay, whatsoever it is that you're doing positive, you know, we would love to put you in the spotlight so we can expose you to other people that you have not possibly had an interaction with. Okay, so we want to expose you so, you know, your greatness can become greater. For my queen, Amani Mariai, who is the co-founder, thank you all for your love and support. We appreciate you. Again, please ensure that you share this video because sharing is caring. Peace, love, and power.